Imagine waking up in the dead of night, walking into your child's bedroom and finding it completely empty. Now imagine that the police, the search dogs, and every camera in the neighborhood can't find a single trace that they ever left the house. Today, we are looking at 3 cases where people vanished under truly impossible circumstances. Welcome. This is the Corporate Narrator, bringing you the most gripping true stories out there. If you love deep dives, dark twists, and stories that stay with you long after they end, make sure you like and subscribe. Help us grow our channel, because every new subscriber fuels the next unforgettable story. And trust me, the next one starts now. Case 1. The Boy Who Evaporated. It was the evening of February 25th, 2024, in the quiet, suburban town of Hendersonville, Tennessee. Inside a comfortable, 2-story house, a 15-year-old boy named Sebastian Rogers was getting ready for bed. Sebastian was a bright, deeply loved teenager. He was on the autism spectrum. Because of this, Sebastian thrived on routine. He liked things to be predictable. He wasn't the type of teenager to break the rules, sneak out of the house, or wander off into the dark. He felt safe at home with his mother, Katie, and his stepfather, Chris. That Sunday night was completely normal. Katie told Sebastian to go to sleep. He went to his room. The house grew quiet. The doors were locked. Everyone went to sleep. The next morning, the sun came up over Hendersonville. Katie woke up to start her day. She walked down the hallway to wake Sebastian up for school. She knocked on his door. No answer. She opened it, expecting to see him tangled in his blankets, but the bed was empty. Katie called his name. She checked the bathroom. She checked the closets. She ran downstairs, her heart starting to beat a little faster. Sebastian was nowhere inside the house. Panic set in. Katie called the police. Within hours, the quiet suburban street was swarming with squad cars. They brought in K9 units, highly trained bloodhounds whose entire job is to track a human scent. They began knocking on neighbors' doors, asking to see their Ring doorbell cameras. The police assumed Sebastian had simply wandered off. Maybe he got confused. Maybe he wanted to go for a walk. But as the hours turned into days, a deeply unsettling reality began to set in. They looked in the mud outside Sebastian's ground floor window. Nothing. No footprints. They checked his closet. His favorite shoes were still there. He had supposedly left barefoot. They brought the bloodhounds to his bed, let them get his scent, and led them outside. The dog sniffed the air, walked in a few circles, and sat down. No scent trail. They pulled the footage from every single security camera in the neighborhood. Dozens of cameras capturing every angle of the street. Here's the chilling secret that the police finally revealed to the public, a detail that ignited a massive, nationwide internet frenzy. Sebastian was never seen leaving the house. There was no footprint, no scent, no camera footage of a boy walking down the street. It was as if he had literally evaporated from his bed in the middle of the night. To this day, despite thousands of armchair detectives and massive search parties, Sebastian Rogers has never been found. The question remains, how does a 15-year-old boy vanish into thin air without leaving a single trace behind? Case 2. The Timeline. Our second story takes us to the chilly, industrial town of Parkersburg, West Virginia. The year is 2022. It's early December. Gretchen Fleming was 28 years old. She was known to everyone as a radiant, creative soul. She loved music, she loved poetry, and she deeply loved her family. She lived with her grandmother, and the two of them shared an incredibly close bond. On the night of December 3rd, Gretchen decided to go out. She wanted to hear some music and blow off some steam. She eventually made her way to a popular local dive bar called the My Way Lounge. Gretchen was having a great time. She was seen laughing, talking to people, and just enjoying the atmosphere. The hours ticked by. Midnight passed. 1 a.m. passed. Back at home, Gretchen's grandmother was asleep, assuming Gretchen would be back in the early hours of the morning. But when Sunday morning rolled around, Gretchen wasn't there. Her grandmother wasn't immediately terrified. Gretchen was 28. Sometimes she stayed at a friend's house. But by Monday, when Gretchen missed work and her phone went straight to voicemail, her family knew something was terribly wrong. Police launched an investigation. Because this happened in a busy commercial area, they immediately went to the cameras. They needed to build a timeline of Gretchen's final known hours. They pulled the footage from the My Way Lounge. They saw Gretchen. She was there, just as witnesses said. But as they watched the grainy video, they noticed she wasn't alone at the end of the night. As the bar was closing, around 3 a.m., Gretchen was seen walking out the back door. But she was being guided by an older man. Police immediately tracked this man down. He became their primary person of interest. And when they looked into his background, the case took a dark turn. This man was a former law enforcement officer. He knew exactly how investigations worked. He knew how evidence was gathered. When police brought him in for questioning, he didn't deny being with Gretchen. He calmly admitted that they left the bar together. He said she got into his vehicle. But then, he looked the detectives in the eye and said, "I dropped her off. I don't know where she went after that." The police didn't believe him. They executed a search warrant on his home. They scoured his property. The town held its breath, waiting for the arrest. But then, the terrifying truth of the situation came to light. Despite having the man on camera, despite knowing she was in his car, and despite thoroughly searching the home of a former police officer, they found absolutely nothing tying him to a crime. No physical evidence, no blood, and most importantly, no Gretchen. Because of his background, many believe he knew exactly how to clean up a crime scene. To this day, the man has never been charged with a crime, and Gretchen Fleming remains missing. The security footage of her walking out of that back door is the last time she was ever seen on Earth. Case 3. The Ghost of the Mountains. Our final story takes us across the world to the breathtaking yet incredibly dangerous Somiedo Natural Park in Asturias, Spain. The Somiedo Mountains are massive, jagged peaks covered in thick forests and deep, winding ravines. It is a place where nature rules and humans are just visitors. Years ago, a group of hikers were making their way up a remote, rarely used trail. As they navigated a particularly steep ridge, one of them looked down into a heavily wooded gorge. Resting against the base of a massive tree, they saw something completely out of place. It was a body. Police arrived and recovered the remains. The man had clearly been dead for quite some time. He was dressed in standard generic hiking gear. But when investigators went to search his pockets to figure out who he was, they found nothing. No wallet, no ID, no phone. Even the tags on his clothing had been faded or removed. They checked the missing persons database for the surrounding towns. No one was looking for him. They checked the national database. Still nothing. He became known locally as the Man of Somiedo, a total John Doe. Years turned into a decade, then more. The files gathered dust. The Man of Somiedo was buried in an unmarked grave, a forgotten ghost who had simply walked into the mountains and died. But recently, the local authorities decided to try one last thing. Science had advanced drastically since the body was found. They exhumed the remains and extracted a tiny, degraded sample of his DNA. They handed this sample over to a team specializing in genetic genealogy. This is the process of taking a suspect or victim's DNA and running it through public ancestry databases, hoping to find a distant cousin. For months, the computers crunched the data. Then they got a hit. A third cousin. The genealogists built massive family trees, working backward, narrowing down the branches, until they finally landed on a single name. They took this name to the police. The police drove to a small village miles away from the mountains and knocked on the door of an elderly woman. They asked her if she had a brother by this name. She burst into tears and said yes. But when the police told her where they found him, she looked at them in total shock. Here is the unbelievable secret that the DNA finally revealed. The man of Somiedo was not a hiker who got lost. His sister revealed that decades ago, he had been involved in a massive, secret financial scandal. People were looking for him. Dangerous people. One night, he told his sister he had to leave and never come back. He hadn't gotten lost in the woods. He had intentionally hiked into the most remote, unforgiving part of the mountains, stripped himself of all his identification, and sat down against that tree to deliberately disappear from the world forever. And if it weren't for a microscopic drop of DNA decades later, his incredible final escape would have worked perfectly. If you made it all the way to the end, thank you for watching. Seriously, it means more than you think. Before you go, I want to hear from you. What story should we cover next? And how can we make these videos even better for you? Drop your ideas, feedback, or even the darkest cases you've heard of down in the comments. Help us grow this channel into something unforgettable. And until the next story, stay curious.